Before you go wedding dress shopping, there are a few things you need to know about bridal fabrics, and today I'm going to show you the ropes. Watch to the end of the video and you'll discover my top 10 bridal fabrics that you'll probably meet on your wedding dress journey. The fabrics we're going to look at are Crepe, Mikado, Dupion, Taffeta, Satin, Chiffon, Organza, Tulle, lace, and 3D fabrics. Firstly, there are a lot of myths about wedding dress fabric, and it's a good idea to be well informed so you feel much more confident when you're shopping for your dress. Secondly, knowing a little bit about fabrics is very useful for when you're considering what you're going to do with the dress after the wedding. If you're familiar with whether it's synthetic or natural, you're going to have more of a good idea whether it's going to be easy to dye and what's likely to happen to it when you try and turn it into something that you can wear every day. If you enjoyed this video, then do please give me a thumbs up and leave me a comment and let me know how you got on with your wedding dress shopping, whether you have any questions about your fabrics and whether you've had a look at the label to see what your dress is made of. My biggest tip when you're thinking about bridal fabrics is to beware of the word silky. Now, this is a very confusing term and it's very widely used to describe bridal fabrics. But when we hear the word silky, we automatically assume that it's silk, and we therefore equate it to luxury, high quality, and a certain price tag. This may not be necessarily the case. Silky can be used to refer to a synthetic dress as well as a silk dress, and it's important to know the difference to make sure that you're getting good value for money and you're buying what you think you're buying. After you've watched to the end of this video to discover all of these fabrics, do check out some of the other videos on my channel. I give you lots of wedding hacks, tips about everything from bustling your wedding dress train to how to be fastened into it to avoid back fat, and even ideas about designing your own dress for your wedding. All of the fabrics we're going to look at now come in both a synthetic version and a natural version. So let's head on up to the sewing room and we'll go through them one by one. Crepe is a very popular wedding dress fabric. It's matte, it's sometimes a little textured, very floppy, very drapey. It comes in different weights. So sometimes it's very lightweight and sometimes it's a lot heavier. It's often used in narrower dress silhouettes and sometimes cut on the bias to create more of a figure-hugging effect. Mikado is currently very popular and is stiff with a faint grain. Many designers use it because it holds its shape very well. It's got a slight sheen, but it's not super shiny. It works very well in architectural and geometric styles and is often found in dresses with pleats. Dupion is a wild, raw or slubby version of its smoother cousin taffeta, which was famously worn by Princess Diana. Dupion can be very textured and was very popular in the puffy-sleeved meringue dresses of the 1980s. Taffeta is a smooth, structured fabric with a sheen to it. It feels lovely to the touch and has a tendency to crease, particularly if it is silk taffeta rather than polyester taffeta. The creasing was the main criticism of Princess Diana's silk taffeta dress. But it is beautiful, it's lightweight, and it can create a huge amount of volume. Satin is the shiny fabric and it comes in a variety of weights, stiffness and gloss. These all have different names and the most common being Duchess satin and Crepe satin. Duchess is stiff and heavy, often used for bigger ball gown shapes, and Crepe satin is more floppy, often with a textured underside, and often you can use either side of it. Satin is beautiful, versatile and often embellished with beading or pearls. Chiffon is generically used to describe a fabric which is sheer and floaty, so transparent fabrics do include chiffon, but also Georgette. Georgette is like chiffon, but with a slightly more textured feel. These delicate fabrics are a bit prone to static due to the lack of moisture in our centrally heated homes, but they're very beautiful and give wonderful movement to a wedding dress. Organza is stiffer than chiffon, but just as smooth and transparent. It's often used as an interlining to create volume and stability under a delicate lace or a tulle dress. It looks wonderful as a floaty overlayer over the top of a stiffer fabric. Tulle is the last sheer fabric we'll look at, and is often used for skirt overlayers or mixed with a stretch component, such as elastane, and dyed a flesh colour as a base for lace bodices and sleeves. Most recognisable in veils, tulle has open spaces between the yarns and can be floppy or soft, or very stiff, in which case it's sometimes called net. This is the sort of tulle that's used in petticoats. Lace is famous as the most recognisable wedding dress fabric and is a delicate mesh of threads sewn onto a tulle background. It comes in a huge variety of different designs, often with beads or sequins, and is usually a mix of different fibres, sometimes mixed with elastane to help it stretch a little. 3D fabrics are the last ones we'll look at. These are hugely varied and often quite costly, partly due to the manufacturing process of the fabric itself, but also because the sewing of a 3D fabric takes very careful handling to ensure that all the panels sit correctly. 3D fabrics often feature flowers, leaves or petals and tend to be used in a portion of the dress, but not the whole thing, to avoid overpowering it. After that whistle-stop tour of bridal fabrics, let's just touch for a moment on repurposing your dress and what you need to know about the fabric should you want to dye it after the wedding. When you buy your dress, ask the sales assistant what it's made of. They should be able to, if they don't know already, just look on the label and it will say whether it's polyester, silk or viscose, which are the three most common fibres. Polyester is synthetic, viscose and silk are natural. So the important thing about this is if you want to dye your dress, then if it's synthetic, you would need to use a synthetic dye. If it's a natural fibre, you have a lot more choice in terms of how you're going to dye it. The second thing to ask is whether or not you can wash the dress. Now, most wedding dresses say dry clean only, for good reason, that if you were to wash them, then they tend to distort, sometimes shrink, and sometimes the texture can change. However, the individual components of the dress, the fabrics themselves, usually can be washed. Sometimes they will shrink, sometimes the texture might change a little bit, but that's why we do patch testing. So don't be dissuaded if your dress does say dry clean only. It might be just because it's a mixture of fabrics and some of them will dye beautifully and others won't. So you may have to have your dress dismantled and then repurpose the fabrics separately. Keep some of them as ivory, perhaps as mementos or keepsakes, and turn some of them into a different colour using a dye. Have a look at some of the other videos on my channel for tips about repurposing your dress. There are lots of ways you can do this without dyeing it, but dyeing or painting your dress is a lovely option and turns it into something completely different. Before we wrap up, just one little note about the fabrics of the future. There are many new exciting fabrics being developed at the moment, from bamboo to tencel to recycled or biodegradable polyester. So I will leave a note in the description below if you'd like to check out designers who regularly use these very environmentally friendly fabrics. Just remember when you go wedding dress shopping to ask questions about the fabric. Ask if the boutique owner knows anything about its production, whether it was ethically produced, and whether the fabric itself and the method of production was environmentally friendly. This may be something that's important to you, and the assistant in the boutique should be able to answer your questions. Feel free to leave a comment and just ask any questions if you are considering buying a wedding dress in a fabric that you haven't heard of. I may not have heard of it, but I'd be optimistic that I could find out something about it for you. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.